I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Coin Show we have Bob Baxley, the CTO of Maverick Protocol. Bob, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time.
Hey, Ashton. Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
You're very welcome. Excited to dive into your knowledge in the DeFi industry, what Maverick is working on. Let's kick off our conversation by just starting with a little bit on your background on the technical side and how that led to being the CTO at Maverick Protocol, and then we'll dive into all the details.
Sure. Yeah, so I actually started the academia path. I was a research professor at Georgia Tech, studying machine learning, digital signal processing, and information theory. And about 2014, I started a cybersecurity startup called Bastille. It was venture-backed. We raised $50 million, and I was deep in the cybersecurity space until about 2 years ago when I left to join the Maverick team. Maverick had raised a little bit of seed funding and needed someone technical to help them build the AMM, so I jumped in. I've been in crypto, though, since 2017 or so. Super excited to see the DeFi summer. A few years ago, became an LP and got very fascinated with all that is DeFi, and so it was a great match. And so I've got the technical math background, and I'm loving being here.
Mm-hmm. Great backstory, and I feel like that cybersecurity knowledge definitely comes in handy now. Especially in how quickly DeFi is growing, and you really need to stay on top of the security because that's one of the most important parts of decentralized finance is sometimes you're just trusting code and you're not trusting other people, but if you can't read the code or you're not sure how secure it is, then that could be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, working in the cyber industry, I was part of our business was having real hardcore hackers breaking into things, and seeing those guys work and gals work is amazing. The ingenuity that people can bring. You definitely have to be on your security game to avoid incidents.
Definitely. And now let's get a high-level overview on what exactly Maverick Protocol is doing in the DeFi industry, and then we can jump into the intricacies of that. Sure.
So Maverick is a DEX, and the core technology under that is an AMM. So it's a decentralized exchange, and we've built a new automated market maker, AMM kind of technology. So you can think of Maverick as serving the same sort of use case as something like Uniswap or Curve. The difference is we've got a new AMM. So that's the core contract that does the pricing. So LPs, liquidity providers, bring liquidity to an AMM, and then swappers swap against that. And the differentiating technology, the evolution of technology we've seen is in the AMM tech, how that pricing happens and the degrees of freedom you give liquidity providers so that they can be as capital efficient as they please.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I want to dive into that a little bit because there's a big difference in the centralized exchanges that have people that are making the markets for them, on Binance or these ones where there's a lot of the trading happen, and there's not as much trading that's happening on the decentralized exchanges, but they're using newer technology and sort of replacing those market makers with the tech and with the people that are actually involved in the exchange, which is cool. What is the main difference, in terms of advantages in how the AMMs are working, at least the new tech in Maverick, compared to on the centralized trading that people are used to for the previous years in crypto?
Yeah. So let me talk you through that whole evolution maybe.
Yeah.
So you think about order books on Coinbase or Binance, the centralized exchanges. You've got people placing buy and sell orders, and then there's a matching algorithm or engine in those exchanges. So that's kind of the core of Binance or Coinbase, for instance, is that matching algorithm. So you say, I will buy at price X, and if somebody says I'll sell at price X as well, then they do the match and the swap happens. That's called a centralized order book, a CLOB. And it's hard to do a CLOB on-chain because it requires keeping all this state information. And on-chain, it's very expensive to store data. So really the Uniswap folks, it was revolutionary. This idea that you could create just an AMM, an automated market maker that didn't have a CLOB, didn't have an order book, and you could still have swapping on-chain. So, the original AMM, the idea was the pricing curve is called X times Y equals K. That's what sets the price. you're essentially spreading liquidity across the entire price range from 0 to infinity. So you can think about an order book that's got prices for everywhere, whereas most order books only have prices or orders near the price. So that was good. That was an elegant kind of first solution. And then we saw a curve come along with StableSwap, where they said, well, it doesn't make sense to have these kind of virtual orders across the entire price range if we know our price is always 1. So I don't need liquidity at price equals 1,000 if I know my stable pairs are swapping at price of 1. Mm-hmm. And so that was StableSwap. That was Curve's innovation. Mm-hmm. And that made things more capital efficient. That is, if you provide liquidity in those pools, you get more swaps happen against you, collect more fees essentially because your liquidity is more concentrated. And then UniV3 was kind of the next level of evolution, where they said, well, let's let LPs not just concentrate around 1, but choose where to concentrate. So in UniV3, you get to pick a range of prices as an LP, and that's where you put your liquidity. And the more narrow you make that range, the more fees you can earn. But this is where the complexity comes in. This is where Maverick is solving the problem. Once you concentrate your liquidity in order to get returns, if the price leaves your concentrated range, all of a sudden, you as an LP are not collecting any fees. Your capital efficiency goes to 0. And so in our experience as LPs, when we started Maverick, and then in talking with professional LPs, it became clear that the professionals are using this complicated mechanisms off-chain to rebalance their on-chain liquidity back and forth. And so in Maverick, we've built an AMM that does that movement, does the liquidity movement for LPs automatically on-chain, without the LPs having to spend more gas or have complex infrastructure that does that for them. Mm-hmm. So the net result, the headline is you get better capital efficiency as an LP. And better capital efficiency relates directly to fee efficiency. So you can think of Maverick as offering LPs new degrees of freedom to maximize their capital efficiency.
Okay, thank you so much, Bob, for explaining that whole progression, because for a lot of people that are just trading, a lot of people are still trading on the centralized exchanges, and they're still yet to move into the decentralized side. And even beyond that, the LP can be very confusing for people because there are risks involved, and it sounds confusing, rebalancing your portfolio off chain to make sure that you're right in the money, and it's a whole job in itself. But for the people that are just looking for an easy solution to trade, right, and they don't want to have to send their funds to Binance and go through all the procedures to trade and then withdraw. They just want to do something quickly. I feel like DEXs are the future for that. It's going to make it way easier. Now, with these improvements from all of the technical side that you spoke about, making it easier for LPs to add liquidity into the pool, what are the sort of net benefits for just a trader who just is swing trading ever so often and doesn't really understand the technical background of the DEX?
Yes, there's benefits for a few parties. So the traders is kind of the easiest to explain. Essentially, when LPs concentrate their liquidity, traders can get better pricing. So there's less slippage in their trade. Slippage is, I want the price is X now, and when I trade, I'll kind of swap some, and that'll make the price go X plus a little bit. Mm-hmm. That little bit is slippage, and you want that to be as little as possible. Mm-hmm. So the deeper your markets, the better the slippage is. I totally agree with you. After you go to DeFi and you start trading on DEXs, you never go back to sexes. It's just night and day. The power of custodying your own funds and your own wallets and just seeing on chain, exactly where everything is. Mm-hmm. It's exciting. It's not to say there's not smart contract risks. There aren't risks. Mm-hmm. There's certainly some risks there, but the UX is really nice once you understand what's going on. I think there is a barrier to entry to understanding wallets and this sort of thing, but once you get there, it's really nice working with DEXs. So from the trader side, less slippage is the answer. We really think of Maverick as I think DeFi is going to get bigger by having more money Legos, right? You need these fundamental building blocks. And so what we're trying to do, or what we've hopefully accomplished, is creating a new degree of freedom or two for LPs, and maybe even more importantly for other protocols to build on top of the money Lego we've got, or use our money Lego and place them to build bigger things. So there is honestly a little bit more complexity in LPing on Maverick. Mm-hmm. But I think other protocols will come along and abstract away some of that complexity. But it's way less complexity than it was in something like UniV3, where you're having to do off-chain things to orchestrate your position.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I guess maybe getting into some use cases. So we launched with Galaxy, Lido, and Liquidity. So Galaxy is, they've got a great thing where they're kind of tokenizing participation and activity in protocols. And then Liquidity is a stablecoin project, and Lido, of course, they've got STETH, and they're doing that. So for each one of those, there's not enough degrees of freedom in existing AMMs for them as protocols to get liquidity that they want. The biggest use case is actually Lido, where they're yielding their LST, their liquid staking token, STETH. It grows in value. Like the STETH, you're growing in value relative to ETH because you're getting these validator rewards. And that makes the price of those two diverge slowly. So where Curve kind of solved the problem for stable swap by making an AMM that works well for stable pairs, nobody until Maverick has solved the problem for these liquid staking tokens. So it's really hard to LP a liquid staking token without having to constantly interact with the contract and move your price as the price of the LST moves up relative to ETH. In Maverick, that's solved for you. The AMM does that liquidity movement automatically.
Okay, that's great to know. And yeah, I know Lido is huge, and the liquid staking is huge, and that's a huge advantage for DEXs, I feel like. But I'm curious on the other side, one of the people that are afraid to move into DEXs, some of the other limitations that I personally have also experienced is whether it's just the amount of the coins that you want aren't available, whether it's because it's on a different blockchain or you're trying to have Ether and move to Cosmos or Bitcoin or something like that, or also you want to short it, or you want to have like orders set in lower on, and Uniswap couldn't do that where you sort of had to buy at the top price. You couldn't set for the future. So I'm curious on where you see the industry with that right now in Maverick, and will that kind of stuff be solved? And I feel like that will move a lot more people into DeFi.
Yeah, I think so. There's a few things there. Like one is these derivatives, shorting and perpetuals and these sorts of things. I think like the PERP protocol, for instance, under the hood there's an AMM, and they use Uniswap. So one of the things, back to the money Lego analogy, in order to enable these sorts of things, you need more flexible building blocks. And so Maverick can support that. Maverick's not a derivatives exchange, but I think the core pricing tech could be used for a derivatives exchange in the future. As far as depth, I think it's a really interesting story to see the swap aggregators emerge. So like 1inch and Paraswap. What's super cool about Maverick is, in TradFi or really almost any other industry, if you build a new thing, you need a whole bunch of user flow to your project in order to get any traction. But with 1inch and Paraswap, so we're hooked up with these aggregators. Trades that anybody does on 1inch or Paraswap, they pick the DEX with the best pricing, and that's where the order flow goes. So Maverick, since we have the best pricing many times, we're getting a ton of order flow. The AMM is getting a ton of order flow from those platforms. So I think that's really the solution to finding better routes to coins that are hard to find. And I think some of these aggregators are even they're even including the bridging process as part of the swap. So they're abstracting that away as well, which is pretty cool to see. So I think it's still super early days. You see some of these comparisons of blockchain to the internet and the relative progress. And if you really start the internet when it started in the 60s, then we're in the 80s of internet, which is extremely early, right?
Definitely. And yeah, great point about the aggregators. I've seen people that are using 1inch, and all of a sudden it's looking across 8 different exchanges for the best price and that's all people care about is getting the best bang for their buck. And if people haven't even heard of Maverick yet, and then 1inch is actually using it because you guys have the best AMM technology with the lowest slippage. All of a sudden, it's just funneling to trade on there automatically with people don't even realize it. So I feel like that's a huge benefit for you guys having the new technology.
It's cool for Maverick, but at the end of the day, I'm really just like a crypto blockchain maxi, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea that there's no friction for innovation is just super exciting, right? If you imagine any other industry, the idea that you can permissionlessly hook up protocols via essentially APIs, and have them just interact all permissionlessly. You don't have to ask a protocol, can I interact with you? That's what the smart chain enables, or smart contracts enable, is that any protocol can talk to any other protocol permissionlessly, and that's where we get this kind of super rapid innovation, which is just super exciting.
Definitely. And following DeFi since around DeFi summer, seeing the incremental advancements of these DEXs, it's been 3 years or just a little bit more, which in crypto is supposed to be a long time, but I feel like we're still fairly early, and I feel like the next 3 years, probably 2 or 3 or 4 times as much will happen on the decentralized side for improvements in this technology.
Yeah, you got to imagine it's snowballing, right? We're getting the building blocks built now, and we'll start seeing towers built from those building blocks in the near future, I think. Yeah.
And do you think any part of the regulation or government intervention will be part of the catalyst to push people out of centralized exchanges, or to change their habits in the way that they're trading and holding custody of their funds? Or do you think there'll be some other catalyst that will make DEXs grow?
I think it's going to be one of those slow things where you turn around. I mean, if you had told somebody 20 years ago that a computer could real-time translate from any language to another language, that would sound like Terminator science fiction. And now we completely take it for granted. So I think if you look back at UX for the internet in the 90s, it went from dial-up modems, and in the 90s, everybody was just it was pirating music was the main use case, right? Like Napster, was all that regulation and all those court cases. I think we're in that sort of stage in crypto, and eventually you'll have the music that nobody's pirating music anymore, right? That UX has been figured out, and I think we'll have that same sort of thing in DeFi and in blockchain. The UX around wallets, the education of users, all of that will be way easier. You'll think it's ridiculous to spend 3% on a credit card transaction. Like 3% is absolutely insane, right? When you can do it for a penny on the blockchain. So I think it'll just be a slow evolution. We'll turn around and not realize that we're in the future now.
Yeah, great perspective. And moving forward with your team, what are some of the major advancements or part of the roadmap that you guys want to bring out, throughout the summer of 23 and towards the end of this year?
So we think the next big narrative of the rest of 23 and 24 is going to be liquid staking tokens. So, Lido's dominant now, but you've got Rocket ETH, you got CB ETH, you got Frax ETH, Swell. There's all kinds of protocols with the various twists on this idea of you stake ETH for validation and you get some yield on it. And so we're going to see a lot more ETH in those protocols. And what's going to happen is those protocols, LSTs, are going to become the new base asset in AMMs. So if you're an LP in USDC ETH now, there's really no reason for you to not instead be an LP in USDC, name your LST. So USDC Rocket ETH or WST ETH or whatever it is, because that ETH has got some native yield to it. So where we see this going is we'll see a repeat of the curve wars. So, the curve wars were all about finding which stablecoin would be dominant. And they did all kinds of things to try to gain market share. We're going to see the same sort of thing in the LST market, where these various LST protocols are going to do all kinds of things to gain market share. And one of those things they'll do is look for deeper liquidity on AMMs. And so what we're excited about with Maverick is we've got, if you go look at, say, Curve's capital efficiency for WST ETH, they've got like $1.5 billion of ST ETH, and they're doing just like 10, 20, 30 million of volume a day. So the efficiency is on the order of a couple percent. And Maverick, the efficiency is like 400% a day. And it's just because the AMM tech is better at moving the liquidity with price, because the price is constantly kind of shifting. So we're excited to see Maverick kind of play in that LST wars space, and we'll see how that plays out.
Very exciting. And yeah, I've been following Lido since, before you could sort of stake other coins and do liquid staking, but it seems that it's expanding a lot now. I've seen some platforms that can stake, whether it's Near Token, Avalanche, all of these other ones for liquid staking as well. Do you think after Ether liquid staking gets more mainstream, then the entire ecosystem will sort of follow along with that, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's going to become a popular model. I mean, really, Curve was the first one to do it. So the Curve token, you lock it in convex Curve, and that becomes the liquid staking pair, convex Curve and Curve. That creates liquidity. So you're locking in, and then you want to be able to get out. So you're able to trade a little bit of a discount. I think that'll continue to be a popular model for protocols. Anything that has yield, you'll want to lock it. You'll get some sort of liquid staking thing, and then the way you get out of it, get liquid again, is by swapping. So yeah, we're excited to see that narrative. And as I said, I think Maverick's got some unique tech in allowing LPs to be to market make with AMMs for these kind of liquid staking tokens, where the price is going to shift 4% a year, for instance.
Very cool. And what's the best way to follow along with these updates for this liquid staking part that you're talking about with Maverick, and just to learn more about the protocol and test it out?
Yeah, sure. So we're at mav.xyz. The app's live. We've been live for about 3 weeks now, 2.5 weeks. Yeah, you can participate there. We've got an active Discord, active Telegram, active Twitter. So we'd love to have some engagement. Feel free to reach out. I'm in all those channels, and happy to chat with anybody.
Sounds great, Bob. Thank you so much for all the insights into Maverick and just the future of DEXs and DeFi. It's exciting times, and I'm sure we'll have you back on again to talk about the next updates and see what else is new in the industry, because it's growing very quickly. So I do really appreciate your time today, and let's follow up in the near future.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Ashton. Thanks for having me.